your hand or unmute yourself at any time. So the law of cosines also has two cases. Oh, by the way, if you want to see this video, this problem, it is in your book, as well as it's in the other video that I made. So feel free to jump on that. Now the law of cosines, same picture. Okay, so your side little a is across from your angle big A, and same things for B and C. Here's how you can use them. Either when you have two sides in the included angle, which as you know is the side angle side case, or you can have all three sides. So this is where side, side, side comes in. And we'll do one example of each. And this is how it works. The law of cosines can be written in either of the forms, depending on what you want to find. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times the cosine of capital A. So it follows a pattern. It's the side, and it equals to the other two sides, and then minus 2 times those two sides times the cosine of the angle that's across from the side you're looking for. So here's the second way. B squared equals a squared plus c squared, right, the other two sides, minus 2ac times the cosine of the angle you're looking for, which is B. And I'm just telling you this, it's a way to memorize it, so you don't have to keep your card in front of you all the time. And then c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab times the cosine of c. So you can use this formula. There's 4 different variables or unknowns, and so for whichever case you're using, you just plug it in. Lots of calculator work. My one clue to you here is that please remember the order of operations. And I'm sure you learned it as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Remember, it's the parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication and division sort of go together. And then last, you should only have addition or subtraction left. And you always go left to right, always left to right. So just remember that when you do the calculations, especially in your calculator. So the first thing we're going to do is solve this triangle. Remember, solving means you have to find all the angles and all the sides. So this has two sides with the included angle. This is our SAS case. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for B first. Okay? So I'm going to just write down what I'm doing. Solve for third side first. Which means I'm going to solve for B. So I'm going to use this equation here. So B squared equals. Now A is across from A. So that's 11 squared. Plus C squared is across from C. That's 14. Minus 2 times A times C times the cosine of angle B, which is 34. And you may notice that this is basically all calculations now. So you grab your calculator at this point. Now, the one thing I would say also about this is I would, if I were you, I'd probably like chunk this up, maybe do this first, and maybe do this first, and write it down, because you want to be correct, right? And sometimes in your calculator, it's not always easy to do that straightforward. I'm going to use my Apple on this, my TI on this one, and then I'll use my other one on the next one. So I'm going to do 11 squared. Where's my square button? Squared. You probably have a squared button on yours too. Plus 14 squared, and I'm going to press equals. So I'm going to do that. It's 317 minus. And then I'm going to do these numbers separately just to keep track. So 2 times 11 times 14 times cosine 34. And I know that in this kind, I can just go straight forward and it'll give me that. So it's 255.34. It says 2 decimal places, so I think I'm good on that. But then b squared equals, so I do 317 minus 255.34. 61.66. And now I don't want b squared, I want b. And that number looks too big for my triangle anyway, so I know I have to still square root. So I'm going to do the square root. Remember, it's right above your square button. So if your square button is here, it's above the square root unless it's a separate key. But mine's like that, so 61.66, and then I just press enter, so I get 7.8. Let's see, that's closer to 8.5 than 8.6. So I now have B. Any questions right now? Okay, so 7.85. At this point, I have all 3 sides. Okay, so this is going to be my first step. Now my second step, I could use this to solve for one of the other angles, but really the law of sines is much easier here. So to find angle A or angle C, which you can do either, I'm going to use the law of sines because it's simpler than all this calculation. So let's see, I now have B and I have B. I guess I'll look for, maybe I'll do C because I have 14 there. So in case I made a mistake on this, at least I'll get C. So I'm going to do A. No, I don't want sine A. I was going to do C. Didn't I just say I was going to? Yeah. And I just, so I'll do 11 over sine A. 11 over sine A equals 7.85 over 34. Okay, you could also do 14 over sine C. Either one. And then I cross multiply. I'm sorry, I do my cross products. Oh, that should be blue. Oh well. So I get sine of A is going to equal 11 times sine of 34 divided by 7.85. So this is where my calculator comes in again. Okay, so I'm going to do 11 times the sine of 34. I'm going to press equals to get that number. It's 6.15. And now I'm going to divide by 7.5. If you want to avoid pressing equal all the time, just use more parentheses. That's going to give you 0.7836. Okay, so the sine of A is equal to 0.7836. Now at this point, I want the angle, and I have the ratio. So this is where you do the inverse that we learned on 9.6. So the sine inverse of 0.7836 is equal to the measurement of angle A. So I just leave that number on my calculator. And this is where I press the inverse button to get the inverse of sine. So inverse of sine. And now I could either retype it or I just have a button that will enter the answer from the last screen. I'd be happy to show you where that is. And I do equals 51.59. So the measure of angle A is approximately equal to 51.59 degrees. A is 51.59 degrees. And now the only thing left I have to do is find the measure of angle C. So what is C? How do I figure out C? So I have one more to solve. So that'll be my third step. So all I have to do is subtract. Because the triangle sum theorem tells me 180 minus 34 minus 51.59 gives me 94.41 for angle C. I have now solved the triangle, all three. Again, I know that I'm asking you to listen and watch and write stuff down and do the calculations. So I know it's a lot. So I'm going to leave that there for a second before we go on to the next page. Are there any questions? Raise your hand or unmute yourself if there are. Okay. Then we're going to do this second type of case. In this case, we're going to use law of cosines because all we have is three sides. Again, we're going to round to 2 decimal places. This is the side case. Solve the triangle means find angle A, angle B, and angle C. So it doesn't really matter which one you pick. You just need to write myself a note. Solve for any angle first. Then you might be able to guess. The second angle we will find with the law of sines, and the third angle we'll just subtract from 180, the first two. So I think I'm going to pick I'll find angle C. Okay, so it's going to be 20 squared, that little c, equals a squared plus b squared minus 2 times a times b times the cosine of angle C. And again, we're just going to do some calculations, but I would chunk it up. Okay, I'd do this separately, then I would subtract that, and then I'd figure out what these are separately so that I can not lose my place. Unless you're super good with your calculator or you have one of those big graphing one that you can do them all in one. So I'm going to use the other type of calculator, which this is how your phone works if you're using your phone. Okay, I do 20 squared to get that number. I'm going to do 12 squared, and then I can do plus 27 squared, but I have to press equals. Okay, so that gives me 873 for these. And then I'm going to multiply 2 times 12 times 27 to give me that, which is in front of, still multiplied times the cosine of C. This is its own separate deal. Okay, so now I'm going to use my algebra skills. I'm going to take away 873 from both sides. So 400 minus 873. And again, I'm going to write that down. And make sure that when you take away that from both sides, this negative comes with it. times the cosine of C. But now, see those two are multiplied, so I can divide both sides by negative 648. So it's this divided by 648. And on this, I have to put in the number first, and then I have to press my plus minus button. It's right here. So I don't do negative 648. I have to put in the number and then turn it negative. But I press equal, and I get 0.7299, and that's equal to the cosine of C. So the cosine of C now, measure of angle C, is equal to the inverse of this ratio. So with this still on the screen, like don't press clear all the time. With that on the screen, you can now press the shift and the cosine to get that little cosine inverse. And it goes straight to the answer. Okay, so we want to write down measure of angle C is approximately, again, 2 decimal places, so 43.12 degrees. Sounds about right. When I look at angle C, that looks like about 45 degrees, so yay. That one's now 43.12 degrees. Next step, so again, here would be your first step. Okay, my next step, now I'm going to solve using the law of sines. Okay, so I'm going to do 12 over sine A equals 20 over sine of 43.12. I'm going to do my cross products so that sine A is equal to 12 times the sine of 43.12 divided by 20, and I get times 12 equals divided by 20. So 0.4101 approximately, which means now that I have the ratio and I want the angle, this is when I use my inverse. So the measure of angle A is equal to the sine inverse of 0.4101, which is approximately, so when I have it like this, I can just go straight to the shift, press the sign, and it gives me 24.21. 24.21 degrees. So that is the measure of angle A. And it looks small, so that works. Finally, right, we're going to use the triangle sum theorem to simply figure out angle B. I'm looking at it, it looks obtuse, so I'm going to expect that I'm going to get more than 90 here. So 180 minus 43.12 minus 24.21 is going to give me the measure of angle B at approximately 180 minus 43.12 minus 24.21. So that's 112. And I was right. It was more than 9. So 112.67 degrees is my final answer for that one. And all it up to 180. I've used the sign of cosines, the law of sines, and the triangle sum theorem. I will tell you at this point, it's been 20 minutes. I'm not going to actually do this one because it's in the other video. It's also in your book. But I will do this. What I'd like to do here is just tell you that if you try this problem, It's not nearly as involved. It's just find one thing. You just want to find one angle. This is a real life dinosaur example. You might want to check it out. And the answer here approximately is 81.77 units squared, because it's, is it units squared? Yeah, it's area. No, it's an angle. So this is measure of angle B. It's 81.77. Sorry, not units. Anyway, I'd like you to try to do it on your own, give you a little bit of practice. But at this point, we're done with our notes.